Bon dia, benvinguts, benvingudes a la Fundació CatDem a la ciutat de Barcelona, a la gent que veniu de fora i al nostre país de Catalunya. En tot cas, jo cedeixo la paraula per començar les jornades a la senyora Medvet, que en representació de l'ELF farà la... No va. Deia que, com a director de la CatDem, li cedeixo en primer lloc la paraula. Li cedeixo la paraula a la senyora Medvet, que ve de l'ELF, de l'Associació de les Entitats Liberals del Fòrum Liberal Europeu, i que és la coorganitzadora directament amb la Fundació CatDem d'aquest seminari perquè ella faci la inauguració del mateix. Moltes gràcies.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear friends, dear liberal friends. I'm really very pleased and honored that I have an opportunity to address this roundtable on digital economy. European Liberal Forum, as a political foundation on European level, tries to support research, debate on EU public policy issues, and also to support active citizenship, or what I ought to say in this case, digital citizenship. I was a little bit surprised by the title of this roundtable. What does state has to do with it? And of course, as the discussion will be focused on private sector-driven digital economy, we as a political foundations are also concerned about what the state has to do to enable private sector to be successful in digital economy. And it seems to me that this is mainly the appropriate digital infrastructure as well as information that can be available, so for the business, for citizens as well. Well, I have also heard, when I was preparing for this meeting, I came across a paper called "We Love Digital Economy" in Catalonia. And the great achievements that have already been achieved also in the education system among the young. The European youth, as we know, is really eager to become active in economy and more general in the labor market. So I'm looking very much forward to this discussion, and I would like to thank the CatDem Foundation for their help in organizing this event and also in offering these offices where it takes place. And I would also like to thank to ATT for making the event possible through a generous donation. And just let me remind you that this is one of the 4 events that European Liberal Forum does together with ATT, and especially with one of our speakers, also in this event, Mr. Karim Lessina, under the series that we call Innovation Through Digitalization. And the series really looks at diverse topics from e-literacy to digital entrepreneurship. And we will have a next event on digital startups. So if you can join me, us at this event, it will take place in Athens on 16 June this year. So I wish us all a very good discussion, and my gratitude again to CatDem institution specifically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. En tot cas, per mi és un honor ara presentar la persona que moderarà la taula, perquè a part de ser un amic i vicepresident de l'ALDE, és un company de fa molts anys que lluita cada dia perquè el país s'entengui a Europa com un fòrum de llibertat i com un lloc on els països podem trobar segurament el nostre destí, i per tant la paraula li passo al Marc Guerrero. Avui és un dia complicat, també ell suposo que manifestarà, hem començat campanya electoral, ja ho sabeu tots, i alguns de nosaltres, doncs jo mateix, hauré de marxar ara mateix, un cop hagi presentat el Marc, i disculpar per la que no em pugui quedar, però avui tenim el Ramon Tremosa a la Pedrera, d'aquí poc amb el president Pujol presentant un debat sobre Europa, tots dos grans europeistes del nostre país, i a mi em toca anar a treballar-hi i intentar que el Ramon tingui un bon resultat i que el Partit Liberal, per tant, europeu tingui un representant més al futur Parlament Europeu. En tot cas, us deixo amb el Marc Guerrero, que serà la persona que moderarà la taula. Moltes gràcies.
Molt bé, doncs molt bon dia a tothom. Suposo que tenen traducció, per tant no hi ha problema. Un plaer, com comentava el director de la Fundació CatDem, de ser aquí amb vosaltres. Tenim avui un panel, una taula rodona, amb 5 ponents de molt nivell i molt variats també, que jo crec que donaran molt de joc i ens donaran moltes idees i moltes reflexions sobre aquest àmbit tan important. Agrair en primer lloc a l'ELF, a l'European Liberal Forum, per aquestes taules rodones que fa Ralph Dahrendorf tan interessants, que s'estan fent moltes, molt especialment a la Felicitat, que des que presideix aquesta fundació, doncs la veritat és que s'estan fent moltíssimes activitats. Ho comentàvem la setmana passada, vam coincidir a Viena, justament a l'inici de la campanya electoral que fèiem des de la família liberal, i comentàvem les activitats que justament l'ELF està fent per tota Europa i també a Catalunya. I agrair també a la Fundació CatDem, perquè des dels últims anys, juntament amb l'ELF, s'han fet moltíssims esdeveniments, molts seminaris aquí a Barcelona, coorganitzats per ambdues fundacions. Per tant, moltes gràcies a totes dues fundacions. Avui, com deia el Francesc, el director, és un dia molt especial per dos motius. Un, perquè és el Dia d'Europa. Aquest també és un dia especial. Per tant, què millor que el Dia d'Europa fer un cert homenatge també a Europa i a les idees i als valors europeistes i parlar sobre un tema tan important com l'economia europea, en aquest cas l'economia digital, però per tant parlem d'economia i com generem benestar al conjunt d'Europa i quin futur ha de tenir aquesta economia, i molt clarament l'economia digital. I un segon element, com també s'ha comentat, perquè justament ahir al vespre, a mitjanit, vam començar la campanya electoral de les europees. Per tant, són dies on hi haurà un gran debat. Avui els mitjans de comunicació tots ja en parlen sobre el futur d'Europa, sobre com ha de ser aquesta Europa, evidentment també sobre el futur de Catalunya, amb tots els temes polítics que tenim sobre la taula, però molt parlarem sobre l'economia, sobre la recuperació econòmica, sobre si seguim un bon model o no, sobre quin paper ha de tenir l'economia digital i sobre quin paper ha de tenir també l'Estat o el sector públic en contraposició amb el sector o complementàriament amb el sector privat. Jo sempre recordo, l'any 2007 va haver el Consell de Lisboa, d'on va sortir l'estratègia de Lisboa, i textualment aquell any, i ara ja fa uns quants, dèiem els europeus, mitjançant els caps d'estat, que volíem assolir el 2010 l'economia més competitiva del món, amb una gran qualitat de feina, de treball, i una gran cohesió social. Jo sempre dic, perquè és moment també de campanya electoral, que això no ho hem aconseguit. Estem al 2014 i a molts països, especialment al sud d'Europa, i Catalunya n'és un, però podríem anar a Espanya, a Portugal, a Itàlia, estem amb taxes d'atur del 20%, 25, 26, 27%, taxes d'atur juvenil del 50%, que són molt preocupants pel futur de la nostra societat europea. Per tant, em sembla que no hem assolit els objectius que ens plantejaven, potser ens vam equivocar sent massa ambiciosos en aquell moment o no hem fet les polítiques correctament, però per tant cal redreçar això i fer un esforç especialment important en l'àmbit més, jo diria, destacat en els propers anys amb una economia del coneixement com la que estem i amb un món global que és l'economia digital i el paper que té en com generem un benestar social que tots volem pels ciutadans europeus. Per tant, ho deixo aquí, però com a introducció jo crec que és un debat molt important. Excusar, com s'ha dit, justament perquè és aquests dies, Dia d'Europa, i bàsicament perquè tenim campanya electoral i algunes de les persones que venen estan en campanya o són candidats directament. Hi ha l'acte de les 11 també del president Pujol. En tot cas, com a qualsevol seminari, disculpen si hi ha gent que entra i surt. Tenim la confirmació de moltes persones que vindran o més tard, alguns que han de marxar abans. Jo crec que forma part del dia, excusar en tot cas si en algun moment hi ha una mica més de soroll o alguna dificultat. Dit això, comencem amb la taula rodona. Com els deia, tenim 5 ponents molt destacats, d'àmbits diversos, tots molt bons coneixements de l'economia digital. El que faré, si de cas, aniré fent una presentació breument del seu currículum un a un, i demanarem, faig la presentació i que vingui la persona, faci la seva ponència, la seva intervenció, i després continuaré amb els altres. La primera persona a la que voldria demanar-li que intervingués és el doctor Ernest Harman. Moltes gràcies per ser aquí amb nosaltres. El doctor té estudis en psicologia, especialment especialitzat en psicologia de l'organització i del treball. Perdó si la traducció no és correcta perquè està en anglès, ho tradueixo al català i ho tornem a traduir, per tant és una mica complicat. Is good? Ok, thank you. Doctor des de l'any 95 a la Facultat d'Enginyeria Mecànica a Aachen, i des dels anys 90, per dir-ho així, a finals d'anys, ha treballat a diversos àmbits, molt enfocats a l'àmbit de la universitat, amb espais a facultats d'enginyeria mecànica i d'informació tecnològica. Ha treballat també en l'àmbit privat com a consultor intern de diverses institucions, algunes molt destacables en l'àmbit industrial, un professor de psicologia, com els deia, a la Facultat de Treball i Organització Psicològica, i entre d'altres responsabilitats també és des de l'any 2004 director de la societat del departament Society and Economics Department, ho dic en anglès perquè al final ja costa traduir-ho, al BDI de Berlín. Des de l'any 2007 és també director de l'Institut per Innovació i Tècnica o Tecnologia a Alemanya. Com veuen, per tant, una persona amb molts coneixements des de l'àmbit privat, des de l'àmbit pedagògic, acadèmic, i jo li demanaria al doctor Harman que ens pugui acompanyar. Té el micròfon, per tant ho pot fer des d'aquí. Moltes gràcies.
And usually I'm making 3 points when I say something, because that's what I can keep in mind and my listeners can keep in mind. Today I will restrict myself to 2 points for the first statement. And these 2 points have to do with the announcement of this event today. As you already mentioned, the state is very prominent in the title of this discussion. What I would like to say to that is that perhaps it's a bit too simple to talk about state on the one hand and the private economy on the other hand. I think what we are talking about today when it comes to innovative capacities in a society, in economy, in companies, it has more to do with, Mr. Cortes used the word in our short informal discussion, we're rather talking about ecosystems. This means private companies, it means association intermediaries, universities, research organizations, municipalities, and policymakers on all levels. And they, in a way, work together. They provide an infrastructure, but not just a technological infrastructure, but a social, cultural, socio-economic infrastructure, which is, from my point of view, and not only, I think from my point of view, essential for innovation and innovative capacities. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology just published a study in January this year. They were comparing the United States, Japan, China, and Germany in terms of their innovative systems, or industrial ecosystems, as they call it. And that's the major difference, for example. I should speak up? Okay, I speak up. Fine now? Okay, I try to keep that level. By the example of the US versus Germany, they say the main difference between medium-sized companies in the US and medium-sized companies in Germany is that these main street manufacturers in the US don't have a dense industrial ecosystem. There is no Fraunhofer Institute right around the corner. There are no funding programs bringing together small enterprises, big enterprises, research institutions. There is no infrastructure for skill provision in terms of vocational initial and continuing training. They have to do all this by themselves, and that's, well, over-demanding them. So it's not just state versus private. It's unfortunately a bit more complex. It has to do with interlinkages between lots of actors and sectoral, regional, and other levels. So that's my first remark regarding the state and the economy. The second one would be the digital economy. What is the digital economy? I think sometimes it's used in terms of a sector, an economic sector, the digital sector. I do not think that there is such a kind of thing, or that there will be. Digital economy has, of course, something to do with internet enterprises, e-commerce, and so on, of course. But I think what's going on now is a development which will bring together traditional industry and e-commerce, internet industry, let's say it in that words. Or in other terms, beyond the internet of computers is the Internet of Things. Perhaps you have heard this buzzword before, which means that everyday objects like this one, like your car, like a tool in a factory, has some intelligence and knows what it is, know what it can do, know what needs to be done with it, and can communicate and cooperate with other things. To make this possible, it is necessary to integrate machine building, electronics, sensors, robotics, artificial intelligence. And this is digitalization, of course. It's digitalization of industry. In Germany, we use the term Industry 4.0. The first revolution was water and steam. The second was electricity. The third was the IT technology of the 70s. And now we have cyber-physical systems, bringing together the physical and the virtual world. And this will transform industry at large. Siemens CEO Joe Kaeser had a speech in Berlin 2 days ago, and his main concern was digitalization for Siemens, not with regard to some internet portals, but with regard to turbines. So I think it's a broader context. And perhaps one side aspect of that, we are also talking about startups here, that's been mentioned, and of course the digital economy in the more narrow sense of the word is very conducive to startups. But when we are talking also about innovation on a broader scale, we have to keep in mind that innovation takes place differently in different countries, in different cultures. So for example, in the United States, again, innovation is driven mainly by startups or spin-offs from the major technological institutions. In Germany, it's mainly performed by industry, very often by SMEs. So what is driving innovation? Is it startups? Is it innovation in established companies? Is it perhaps the cooperation of both? It has to be kept in mind and has to be regarded in the interdependence. So these have been my 2 points for a first statement. It's not only state versus private, it's rather industrial ecosystems, innovation ecosystems. And digital economy may mean more than it seems at the first look. It may refer to a more general transformation of industry and society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harman. I think it has been really interesting first speech to open the debate. We will continue now with the other speakers, and at the end we will just wrap up all the questions. Our second speaker, I was expected to do it in Catalan, I guess. El nostre segon convidat és italià, d'origen, per tant deu d'entendre bé el català, suposo, sense traducció. En tot cas, en Karim Antonio Lesina és vicepresident d'AT&IT per Afers Externs Internacionals, enfocat bàsicament amb les responsabilitats de la Unió Europea, el Carib, Amèrica Llatina i Central i les relacions transatlàntiques. Ell lidera tota la feina que està fent la seva empresa en aquestes regions. És també president del grup de la presidència, del comitè del grup de la presidència i del comitè d'economia digital de la Cambra de Comerç Americana a la Unió Europea i també membre del patronat de la Fundació Europea d'Internet i president de l'associació EGO. Per tant, un plaer que estigui amb nosaltres, li cedim la paraula.
Sorry for not speaking Catalan, but it's not so close to Italian. No. There is a small part of Italy called Alghero in Sardinia that speaks still Catalan, but I go there on holidays, but I never got the language. But look, I will try to be short as Professor Hartman on that, and I think I agree perfectly with your comments. And I don't know if you guys know AT&T, but we are the Telefonica of the US, let's say like this. Better obviously. But we are in Europe. What we do is exactly what Hartman was talking about. Is we provide connectivity to a big industry. Okay, so we see exactly the transformation he was talking about and the need from companies like Siemens and all the others of becoming digital, and much more. And when we focus on the role of government, that's my job. We look at the role of government as a facilitator, but at the same time we are in a very competitive industry. Okay? And why I'm saying this is sometimes the real problems for companies are old regulation, are red tape for startups to get investments, to open the market, to be on the market, to sell, compared to other parts of the world. The difference of the digital world is that I think everybody sees the world as global today. Specifically, well, I left my iPhone there, but specifically because this small little thing really changed our industry. And when these things arrived on the market, I don't know if you guys remember when it arrived on the market. It arrived on the market only 7 years ago. And if you think at what it was before, it's a little incredible the transformation that the industry had. And this has led a transformation in your behavior, but has also led a transformation in how the industry is looking at technology. And to be really focusing on the role of government, when I'm thinking what the government should do and what should not do, because there are other things that they should not do. But what they should do, in my opinion, is create a framework that supports investments, because when we're talking about startups, we need to have a framework where startups can develop, where SMEs can develop, but also where big industry can develop. When you think to AT&T, we have more than 60,000 SMEs in our supply chain, 60,000. So everything that have a positive effect on big corporations have an automatic positive effect, not only on employees, but also on the ecosystem. So that's the first point. When I think to that, I think to investments. I hear every time people talking about the importance of deploying networks, connectivity, fiber all around the world in your small house in the middle of nowhere in Calabria where my wife is coming from, and etc. But this has a cost. So who is going to take that cost? Is that cost going to be handled by private, or is that cost going to be handled by public? Whoever is going to handle that cost, it needs to be a decision on how you're going to promote it. If you want, I can show you after, because it's a little technical, but a study that has been made in the US by Professor Raoul Katz that shows the impressive change that some tax reduction can have on boosting investments in networks. But just to give you an idea of the importance, we spend, as a company, $120 billion in the last 6 years in our networks. 120 billions, okay, not millions, billions. We are investing more than the oil industry to build the network of the future. that you are expecting, by the way, because you all have an iPhone, an iPad, a Samsung. I don't make any change. You use the phone that you want, even Huawei if you want. But the reality is that to do that, you need to promote the investments. So you need to have a good regulatory framework. You need to decrease the red tape. Then the second big thing that I saw in the organizer request was talking about the financing model. And I think we can let that to Mr. Cortés because he is a real entrepreneur, so he knows that. But one thing that I want to insist on here is that I hear every time the desire to create a European Google, a European Facebook, a European LinkedIn, a European Amazon, and whatever. But we forget that we have excellencies in Europe, and we forget that we have incredible excellencies. Let me give you 2 or 3 examples. Example number 1, who is building the networks? You probably don't know it because you don't look at the antenna. It's not exactly the most sexy thing, an antenna on the wall, but those are, most of the time, European technology. We're talking about Ericsson, we're talking about Alcatel-Lucent. Those are incredible excellencies. In the US, we have no network manufacturers anymore for years, but nobody talks about them. We talk every time about the European Google. But you don't have only that, you have all the industry. You see, when we talk about the German industry or the Spanish industry, Endesa, Inditex, BMW, Daimler, and etc., those are drivers for innovation. And I think there is every time this, we compare too much. I hear too much what is better, the network in the US or the network in Europe. And people do huge reports, start sending emails to Presidents Rajoy or to Nelly Kroes saying the network in the US are a little better, we need to change. The problem is not the comparison. The problem is understanding what are the needs in your own country and seeing how you can promote it, because each country has a different approach. Spain has a different morphology than Sweden. Also economically speaking. So the reality is that you need to look locally and see what can help the industry and think as an ecosystem. You know, we focus too much on digital without seeing the real effect that it will have on the global economy. You know, in the last 5 years, you are hosting the Mobile World Congress here. So every February we have the pleasure to come in Barcelona, all the industry. Probably you guys hate us because we block your city for the whole week. But the reality is that in the last years, you have seen an evolution from people focusing on the device. So like 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was interested by the device. So the most important thing was what was stocked, so what you could store here, how you could use this. In the future, in the next 5 years, we are not looking at the device anymore, and that's maybe a little technical, so sorry, but you're looking at the network. Because most of the people are going to store the information in what we call the cloud, la nube. And this is going to be the revolution, because you're not going to look at this anymore as the center. You're probably going to look at the antennas that you don't see as the center, at least for us, to provide more connectivities for startups that want to do, to provide more connectivity to the app economy. This is a huge change, because for example, your car is going to talk to the network. You will not even know it. They will give you better services. Everything, the machine to machine, will increase the capacity for every person to have a better service, but also to industry to become more productive. And if we lose that small part, we are going to stay really far. So, conclusion. If you want to really do that, and it's not only a question of Catalonia, Spain, Italy, and etc. If you want to develop those markets, you need to work as a region. And you need to develop a framework that supports investments. And I'm sorry to annoy people with this, but our industry needs to be driven by investments. If companies don't invest, we go nowhere, okay? If private companies don't invest, we go nowhere. And let me finish on this. I'm talking about private company because we are a competitive sector, okay? There are a lot of competitors. We have a lot of competitors also coming from the startups and etc. If you think that the telecom operators are still dominating everything, we would love to, joking, but if you look at our real competitor today, you have companies like Skype, like WhatsApp, now Facebook. You have new competitors coming every day who are increasing even more the competition, but this is only the start. But to need that, you need networks. And who is going to build the networks? Telcos. So the aim is to look every time at the ecosystem for the positive. And government has two positions. Either they fund the network, so you, as a taxpayer, you pay for the network, I hope you don't like that, because I would like my money being used for something else and paying something that industry can pay. Or you take an approach that supports investments, and then the operators will follow and invest. And this is, I think, the whole change in the debate specific. And I think we had these discussions already 2 or 3 times with ELF. And the important is really to focus on that. A framework that supports innovation and investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karim, for your speech. Passem a la següent intervenció, a Lauri Luik. Moltes gràcies per ser amb nosaltres. Lauri Luik ve d'Estònia, un país petit, similar a Catalunya, un país petit en dimensions, però molt capdavanter, segurament top level amb l'àmbit de l'economia del coneixement, l'economia digital, la incorporació de les noves tecnologies a l'administració, etc. Per tant, serà un plaer escoltar-lo. En Lauri és membre del partit Estonian Reform Party, el partit reformista d'Estònia, és membre de l'Alde Party, de la família liberal. No sé si ho sabran, però antigament un líder del seu partit ha estat el primer ministre d'Estònia, en Siim Kallas, actualment vicepresident de la Comissió Europea, comissari de Transports. El Lauri és, acadèmicament, té un màster en Computer and System Technology Science i és president de la Federació d'Esports Escolars d'Estònia i, a més, és diputat al Parlament d'Estònia i president del Comitè de Cultura. Per tant, un plaer que estigui amb nosaltres.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here with you. First of all, I would like to thank European Liberal Forum and CATEM for inviting me to share our view with you. I thought that I will be very practical. I will give you a little survey about Estonian so-called e-success story. Perhaps it's interesting for you to listen. Some of the projects we have done and some of the main issues I think are very important if you talk about digital economy and digitalization and everything like that. So, first of all, I have to say that digitalization process in Estonia started in banking in 90s when banks started to digitalize their systems, and since today, and now we have 99.6% of bank transactions done electronically. So it was the very beginning of our so-called e-success story. I have to say that one of the most important things or factors is cooperation between public sector and private sector. And it has been so in Estonia that public and private sector have done very good cooperation. So that's why I think we have accomplished all those projects I'm going to give a little survey about. Government has been also a very good role model since 2000s. We have developed several projects. For example, e-government. It means that we have all documents in government, in parliament, in public sector, digitally signed and archived. All documents but this one here. We developed digital signature. We have those small ID cards or mobile IDs, so you can sign your documents through internet with your ID card. So we don't need to sign any hand signatures anymore. It has it helps us to save time and to help people to how to say, the bureaucracy is getting lower with that, so it's helping us. One very important project, in my opinion, is e-elections. In 2011, we had the last parliamentary elections, and then already 140,000 people voted electronically, and it went pretty well. And I got into parliament and happy. So, one interesting thing also is e-tax board. It means that you can declare your declarations and taxes all digitally. And this year, 95.4% of declarations were made already electronically. And 99.8% of companies detail their annual reports digitally this year. So it has helped a lot, I think. We also have e-population register, where we have our citizens and their addresses. It's a big database. And one big data exchange layer we call X-Road, which helps to access all databases from one place. So we have put all databases into one place, and this layer helps to access those databases pretty easily. We hold our health records electronically in electronic archives, so everyone can access those databases, and I can check what about my health, what's written in there, and my doctor can write the prescription digitally. So if I take my ID card and go to Apotheca, then I can get my medicine without filling any papers. So it's pretty comfortable also. We also developed e-school system where 80% of schools and 90% of our students are connected with each other. So parents and students and teachers communicate through this e-school system, and it works pretty well, I think. Just some more interesting facts that we achieved to equip all our police cars with internet and all specific databases they need in their work. And also Estonia was the first country in the world who developed the mobile parking system. Now it's pretty common already, but we started it, and it started pretty well, in my opinion. And then we also have one small so-called world record. So you can establish a company in 18 minutes through our digital system. 18, yes. So it was so cool. Small record. Another very important thing, in my opinion, is education. Some of the speakers already mentioned education, and I see that our education system supports entrepreneurship and innovation. We have entrepreneurship studies in gymnasiums. We wrote it into our national curriculum, and we are planning to write it also already to the 8th and 9th grade, to start earlier and to teach children what is it and how is it to build a company and how to be active, innovative, and so on. We have also incubators and innovation centers for the beginners to start with their company and to help them with know-how and all these things. Of course, our universities support startups. We are just have one law in Estonian Parliament where we give permission for the university to finance those startups, to help them raise. One more interesting project for schools was so-called Tiger Leap project. It started late 90s, and we equipped our classes with computers, and we started with computer studies. Now we have coding and programming studies from the 5th grade already to our youngsters, and the result is that today 80% of Estonia's population, which is quite small, but still 80% of us are using internet and computers. So of course, one very important factor is support from government, from different kind of funds, from European Union and so on. So we have several startup investment programs where young startups can get some additional money. We have a network for venture capital investors who wants to invest into new companies, and different kind of other funds that support innovation and new companies. For the conclusion, I would say that in my opinion we are moving on the right direction. Our goal for the future is to develop Estonia as a startups and IT center, so-called data embassy. We are really interested in cooperation with other countries and partners. We are already doing very good cooperation to get new ideas, to share our experience. And the last but not least project we just started is so-called e-residence. It means that we give those ID cards or digital identity to non-residents, so they can use our technology and all the services we have in Estonia. Perhaps it helps those foreigners to use our technologies also. So for the introduction, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moltes gràcies, senyor Lauri i Luic. Com han vist, clarament Estònia és un model d'èxit total en aquest àmbit. I jo, mentre anava fent la intervenció en Lauri, pensava si tota Europa tingués aquestes condicions tindríem un potencial tremendo. Per tant, amb certa enveja, però espero que Europa, el conjunt dels països europeus i Europa en general, la tendència sigui assolir els nivells que Estònia ha assolit. Moltes gràcies. Passem del nord d'Europa cap al sud d'Europa. La següent ponent ve de Grècia i és la Emilia Tsakiri, que és desenvolupadora de negocis de l'empresa Coolfly, o Coolfly, no sé, .com.
I'm really happy I'm here. I'm the only one, I think, with Mr. Cortez that I will not speak about politics. I don't know about the programs and everything that goes on around Europe, so I will probably go with, just give it a sec because technology is not helping me right now and it's not normal. It's not the case always.
It's a fantastic computer.
Yeah, I do a little bit of show off usually. So.
Okay.
So.
Oh, yeah.
So, I will try. I will focus a bit more in entrepreneurship that has to do with young generations. I'm not really, how to say, involved in politics and how big corporations are usually make decisions and move forward. It's a bit difficult for me to understand how to plan things in a really, really, really big picture point of view. I prefer more like just do it. Just start doing it and you will figure out the way as you go forward. And I realized that when I was growing up, I was thinking about, okay, I really need to run now. And then something like a wall stopped me every single time that I was trying to do. This wall was usually made from people that were thinking without having to act, just saying things instead of doing things. Sometimes this was good because it made me think twice before doing things, and it saved me a lot of times. But sometimes it really stopped me from doing things, me and my colleagues or everything, stop of doing things that maybe will change a bit the world. Maybe not. So I think that if we enable a bit more the younger generation, I'm not in this generation anymore, but when I was, it was really cool to see that I was carrying a world with me. I had this mobile phone and everything. I had it with me. I knew everything about the world. You ask me something, I would just Google it, I would just find a solution to your problem, or I would say to you, there is no solution currently, but I can maybe work on it and find a solution for you. So, just to make things forward. I was lucky enough to have people in my life to guide me through, step by step, through the process of learning about technology, and love technology, becoming a tech freak, even though it's not that good, and then entering the world of entrepreneurship in order to, let's say, make things happen. I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was asking my mom, hey mom, why this is like this? Why did they build like this? And my mom usually responded to me that smarter people than us did it like this. So mom, why but why is this? So now I have my mobile phone, and when I see something, I take a picture of it, I just put the picture in Google, and they say why this was made like this, why people thought about it. And then you come with a normal question, why I should do it like they did it. But I can do it differently now. I have the technology to do it differently. So actually, when I entered, I have the luck to be in the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, EPFL. So I had the luck there to get involved with startups. They have a really good incubator, but the fact that they brought the incubator to the students, not the students to the incubator, it was a real success, because I saw people in the age of 23, 25 saying, okay, I will do it. I will create a company and I will solve all the problems of the world. And in the beginning, you were laughing and you say, oh, what are they thinking? He's not going to change the world. But when you participate in this and you see the power and the ideas that come after this, it's really fascinating. So I would like to focus this short intro in the fact that when you put people in an environment that they can actually see that it's not that difficult, you just have to try once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. You just don't have to quit. You will see that these people actually, the group of people, all these, how to say, the ecosystem, maybe small ecosystems of people from different backgrounds can create things that you were saying, oh, come on, this is so simple. But yes, but this simple thing, it's actually the re-engineering of things that already exist with older technology. So you use the technology as a vehicle to change actually how things are done and how things should be done. So just to give you a small example, I had to do some medical things back in Greece. And I went to the doctor and they say, okay, this is a digital new thing that in Greece happens. This is a digital prescription for you. And I was like, oh, cool. My life now is not that boring. I don't have to run around things, just take signatures and everything. So I went back home, and when I went to the medical center, they said, oh, no, you haven't validated your, it's like a medical book or something. I say, do I have to validate it? I live, I'm alive, you know. And they said, yeah, you have to go there, wait for an hour, then wait for 7 hours. They will give you the signature, and then you can go back. Say, okay, my dream is now over. So actually, it's when you start to actually make an economy more digital and bring digital and other things. Just give me a sec. Technology avoided me. So it's it has to have a balance. The private sector with the public sector must work together. I mean, if you start in the age of 15 or 16 and make people engage in something and projects and digital for them, it's not digital, it's their life. I mean, I see kids like 10 years old with their tablets. And when I bought this, I said, okay, I need 2 hours or 5 hours to find out how everything works. But then I found, actually, I had a cousin and I said, okay, take it. It was like 12 years old, take it. Find out how it works and give it back to me and explain, please. In 1 hour, this kid knew everything about the computer. 1 hour. I needed at least 2 to 5 hours, I'm sure. So actually, these kids, it's not about digital. Digital for them, it's their life. They wake up in the morning, they have their MP3, their phones. They have phones from the age of 10. So actually, it's how to empower these people to change how things are done. And this can be done, I think, really think, education for me is the most important. I was really lucky to have all these people and professors in my life to guide me from one step to the other. And this, it shouldn't be a matter of luck, it should be a matter of choice. I mean, I will give you the opportunity to expose yourself to what entrepreneurship means and having the choice to do things differently and change some things of the world. And you can choose if you want to go with a way of changing things, or you can have the choice of going with the decision making of changing things, actually, because it's 2 parts. 2 parts must work together. If people that make decisions are not exposed to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship way of thinking, actually, why doing this, why changing things, they cannot take proper decisions to change things, because they have never been in the place of changing things, doing things to change things. So actually, if they have the education or efforts or even trying to change things when they're young, when they're older, they can actually work with the people that are changing things together to do good things. So yes, I'm a bit, I'm a bit of a doer than more than saying how to solve the problem. But I think if we provide all the, how to say that, provide all the infrastructure with a way of, let's say, giving the opportunity to 15 years old to create a company. 15 years old. Come on, they do it in US. We don't do it in Europe. 15 years old. We are here 2 hours. In 2 hours, I could have a company in 18 minutes. Yeah. I could start a campaign in Kickstarter. I could raise, if it's a good idea, like 50,000 euros in a couple of hours. If it's a really good idea and social media spreads the word around us. And I can finish here, go back to Greece. I will be in Greece at 10 o'clock in the night, so it means I will probably have like 2,000 followers in Twitter and let's say 20,000 likers on Facebook. I will have like 50,000 touch points around the world. So things are moving really fast. And young generation are really doing this really fast because it's their life. It's not like they adopt something new, they live in it. So everything that is not fast through digital, the digital world, as we say digital, for them it's not digital, it's like boring, it's without any meaning, and actually it's very slow. I had the opportunity to see, like, I went to the mall this weekend and I saw a lot of kids around me, like 15 years old, and they had their really nice shirts and stuff. I was like, what's going on? It was actually an innovation contest for high school students. They were building F1, Formula 1, F1 models, and they were racing between them. And they had to design them in a program, they had to build prototypes, and they had to race themselves and win, and it was 15 years old. These kids know more for engineering than I know. I had engineering background, but at this point, these guys knew, like, whoa, they knew aerodynamics, they knew, like, they had to make it through solar panels. They knew a lot of things. I was, like, surprised that 15 years old could actually do things. These kids afterwards will join companies. Afterwards, they might not join companies, they might go into politics, but they will have an idea about how doing things differently means. So actually, for me, it's not going to see Johnny Depp's new movie. I hope you didn't see this. No, last week it went to the theaters. It's about artificial intelligence, about the new ecosystem. I really didn't want to see it, but I had to go. So now I'm scared. I'm scared about the future after this movie, like I saw it in the weekend. I'm really scared. It took me 2 days to take it easy and say, okay, this might not happen, actually. It needs a lot of care. It needs a lot of attention where we're going. And if we give a lot of power, because sometimes I really feel that I have the world in my laptop, in my phone, everywhere, to either leave things just go and leave the young generation guide, which is really dangerous, but it's really nice too, and then find the way to give them the correct guidance from young age to do it not the way we want, but the way that would be more sustainable, give them the power to actually embrace the environment that they live. For me, it's really, really easy now to say, like, to a person in California, say, hey, how is it there? Are we going to have a chat in 5 minutes? My parents did not even consider the fact to talk with the person in California and say, okay, let's make a business idea in less than 1 hour. Let's start now. It was like, for them, it was an anecdote. So just to keep the conversation short, I think that a major thing that we should consider for the future is, like, understanding the younger generation and see that actually they live in a mobile world. Mobiles for them is their world. It's not that they live around us. They walk in the streets with a mobile phone. Just understand why mobiles, I mean, people who have a lot of knowledge. Mobile knowledge is together now. They have all the knowledge they need in a phone. How to make this recreate and redesign the world that we're living, but creating a world that will not be a world that humans and machines will be equal, because we are going towards, don't see the movie, don't see them. We were going towards a really dangerous zone. I'm afraid they are not, younger people are not. But we should rethink how to empower these young people to make things that we are not thinking because we are old now, and they are actually recreating things. So that's it. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies, Emília. Jo crec que han sigut unes paraules molt motivadores, molt passionals i molt engrescadores cap a les possibilitats d'un futur amb totes les aplicacions tecnològiques. Abans de passar a l'últim ponent, m'agradaria també agrair molt especialment al senyor Luca Bellizzi, que el tenim aquí a la taula, que és candidat a les eleccions europees i per tant en campanya electoral. Doncs moltes gràcies per venir, per mostrar l'interès en aquest àmbit i amb l'economia digital, i desitjar-li molta sort a aquestes properes eleccions. Dit això, passem al darrer ponent, el senyor Sergio Cortés. En Sergio Cortés és també, com la Emília, enginyer industrial, ve del món de l'enginyeria, màster en administració d'empreses per ESADE, ha cursat diversos programes de postgrau a universitats de gran prestigi, com la Universitat de Stanford, a Califòrnia, o el MIT de Massachusetts. És un dels emprenedors, si no l'emprenedor de referència a Catalunya en el segment d'empreses tecnològiques i d'innovació, tot i la seva joventut. És expert en comerç electrònic i redes socials, especialment en serveis d'acompanyament estratègic i desenvolupament d'accions de cara a rendibilitzar tots els entorns 2.0 per clients i administracions públiques i privades. Fundador de diverses companyies, entre les que destaquen Think i socialbuy.com, i actualment, a banda de ser tertulià habitual, no tertulià habitual, però en tot cas de participar en molts programes de televisió i de ràdio divulgant tot el seu coneixement, és assessor en diverses organitzacions, entre d'elles entitats bancàries, administracions, projectes solidaris, etc. És un plaer per nosaltres tenir avui el Sergio Cortés. Moltes gràcies.
Doncs moltes gràcies, Marc, i moltes gràcies a ell per convidar-me a aquesta taula rodona per una mica compartir amb vosaltres, amb tothom, la meva visió des de l'emprenedoria, des de la batalla diària que tenim les empreses petites, encara que cada dia estem intentant ser una miqueta més grans, quines dificultats trobem, etc. Jo donaré avui la visió d'aquest nínxol de mercat que és la startup. S'ha parlat avui en diverses intervencions d'aquest concepte. És un concepte d'una empresa una mica peculiar, amb unes característiques molt concretes. Som habitualment empreses tecnològiques d'alt potencial de creixement, en mercats molt canviants, molt flexibles, d'un àmbit global, i que competim en un entorn, en un ecosistema, que és una paraula que també s'ha fet servir molt avui, que és complexa però molt engrescador. Jo vull aprofitar una metàfora que vaig aprendre a Stanford precisament, que és la metàfora de los monkeys and gorillas, que m'agrada molt quan parlo d'una mica la relació dels sectors que estan en tot aquest ecosistema, des de les empreses grans a l'Estat o les administracions públiques. És una relació molt d'això, de monkeys and gorillas. Els goril·les són, com tots sabeu, animals molt grans que els hi costa molt de moure, amb unes tendències molt, diguéssim, de territori, de protegir el territori, i els goril·les, els monkeys, són totalment diferents. Les startups són empreses molt petites que ens agrada, diguéssim, tocar els nassos a les grans, que vivim en un entorn de goril·les, de l'Estat, de les administracions, tot això. Doncs d'aquesta metàfora es poden treure moltíssimes conclusions i tot això, i jo volia focalitzar-me una mica en aquesta relació entre monkeys i goril·les, entenent per goril·les tant les administracions públiques, que és una mica del que es tracta avui, com les grans empreses amb les que treballem els petits monkeys, 3 punts també de resum. El primer de tot és una mica la meva opinió més o menys crítica amb tot el que és el desenvolupament del concepte d'emprenedoria, no? Que estem fent en aquest ecosistema. No? Un concepte que des del meu punt de vista està molt focalitzat en la creació, com a mínim aquí a Catalunya i a l'estat espanyol, en la creació d'empleo, en l'autoocupació, en promoure tot el sistema de SMEs, de pimes, que això és evidentment molt necessari, però jo estic aquí una mica per donar la meva visió de la mancança que trobem en empreses que estem en un segment una mica diferent d'aquest, que som empreses que necessitem créixer, que necessitem talent, que necessitem inversió, que necessitem una dimensió de mercat més gran i que ens trobem que el sistema, i parlo de sistema en general, tant el públic com el privat, no dona prou resposta, no funciona prou bé aquest sistema de creixement i d'innovació per a aquestes startups que ens trobem aquí al mig, que no som empreses que volem crear una ocupació, diguéssim, pròpia, no som autònoms, per suposat, tampoc som pimes, diguéssim, orientades molt legítimament a construir un servei i quedar-se donant aquest servei amb una gran qualitat, sinó que som empreses destinades a créixer molt ràpid, probablement a morir molt ràpid també, per què no dir-ho, i hi ha un concepte que tots hem escoltat en el món de l'emprenedoria i les startups, que és lo de fracassar ràpido i fracassar barato. Doncs la primera conclusió de tot això és que necessitaríem, diguéssim, un entorn, sobretot públic, que ens ajudara en aquest segment d'empreses a fracassar ràpido i a fracassar barato. Per què això? Bàsicament perquè la relació entre monkeys i goril·les, entre empreses grans, petites i mercat, es basa molt en la capacitat de risc, la capacitat de moure molt ràpid i la capacitat de poder canviar d'una manera molt flexible. Doncs tot el que ajuda a això, per exemple, a focalitzar-se en augmentar la demanda de mercat, posaré un exemple, nosaltres o la meva pròpia activitat, totes i cada una de les empreses que hem construït que han estat creixent al voltant del 100% per any o del 100% per any han hagut de sortir fora a buscar nous mercats. En el cas de socialbuy.com a Londres, en el cas de Flock, una altra empresa en la que participo, el mercat americà, etc. Doncs les empreses tenim una gran capacitat d'atracció aquí a Catalunya d'empreses, mantenim aquí el headquarters, evidentment, però després, quan trobem mercats, quan necessitem mercats de creixement, legislacions de creixement, etc., hem de sortir, malauradament, fora buscant aquest negoci. Per tant, aquesta és la primera conclusió del primer punt. Necessitaríem una mica un model més flexible per activar mercats, activar la capacitat de risc, la legislació, etc. El segon punt que volia tractar és el punt del model de capital i inversió, que el senyor Lessina ha tractat molt bé i m'ha agradat molt la seva opinió, que és una mica un punt que trobem que s'ha de treballar molt. A les startups necessitem inversió, com totes les empreses, per créixer, i la inversió de les startups és una evolució, és un cicle que està molt reglat. És des del que anomenem la triple F, que són Family, Friends and Fools, és a dir, la primera captació de capital que necessita un emprenedor per muntar un negoci, és a dir, embolicar als amics, a la mare, al pare, a los locos, que ens donen una miqueta de calés la primera vegada que fem un negoci. Aquest és el model triple F, que sona molt simpàtic però que està, diguéssim, estipulat, és un tema tècnic. Després tenim tot el tema de seed capital, capital semilla, que ens ajuda a muntar l'empresa, a créixer i més. Després passem al mercat de business angel, que bàsicament som gent que ja ha fet el seu propi negoci en general i que vol reinvertir part del seu patrimoni personal, com és el meu cas, en participar en altres startups a les que apoya. I després tenim una mica el gran agujero, que és el tema del venture capital. El venture capital és capital privat que està més o menys destinat a fer créixer una startup per després a fer una sortida de la inversió perquè aquesta startup és comprada principalment per un private equity, una empresa gran, etc. És un model una mica complex. Però bàsicament el model falla principalment perquè moltes empreses, molts gorilles, moltes empreses grans, el que no fan són adquisicions de startups, per exemple, en l'entorn en el que estem. Diguéssim que la legislació o la incentivació fiscal que tenen les empreses grans per fer desenvolupament i investigació és més orientat a departaments interns, que també està molt bé, més aviat que per adquirir o invertir en startups, no? I això trenca radicalment la cadena de capital que necessitem les startups, perquè si no trobem capital risc que posi calés en les nostres empreses per fer-les créixer i que una empresa gran adquiera aquesta empresa i aquest capital risc tingui una sortida a la seva inversió, aquest procés, que pot sonar molt raro, però és el que existeix, doncs es trenca i això és un greu problema per al creixement de les empreses com la nostra, no? Per tant, crec que la conclusió del segon punt seria que la legislació hauria d'intentar incentivar tot aquest cicle d'inversió motivant als gorilas a que inviertan en adquisiciones de startups, ¿no? De monkeys. Ya hay muchos gorilas, principalmente las telcos, com és el cas de AT&T o de Telefónica aquí en Espanya o algunes altres, que sí que estan fent moltes adquisicions i en programes d'incubació de startups molt interessants, però és un tema que hi costa molt encara, no? Llavors, el tercer punt que volia comentar en aquesta relació de monkeys i goriles, i aquest va dirigit a les administracions públiques també una mica perquè és l'entorn, és el tema de la regulació i la legislació, no? I en una segona, en una doble visió, no? La regulació al voltant de la legislació mercantil, és a dir, les eines que tenim les startups per desenvolupar jurídicament la nostra activitat, que jo crec que hem de recórrer un camí molt important en aquí. Bàsicament jo crec que la gran mancança aquí és la capacitat que tenim les startups per captar talent a nivell global, involucrar-los en el nostre projecte i poder disposar d'una legislació que promogui això, no? Poso un exemple molt senzill i molt clar, que és que aquí a Catalunya tenim un debat des de fa temps en tot el tema de la legislació sobre stock options i la capacitat que tenen les empreses per donar paquetes retributius a gent que vols incorporar a la teva empresa, diguéssim, a través d'accions i que això sigui un sistema que pot funcionar, no? Són coses que a altres mercats com els Estats Units, òbviament, això està molt desenvolupat i les startups que creixen molt ho poden fer, i aquí a Espanya és un tema que encara no hem resolt, no? I després la regulació té un altre caràcter més productiu de negoci, no? Tot l'àmbit nostre, que és l'àmbit digital, de l'e-commerce, d'internet, etc., té molt de, i això és un tema global, no és un tema de Catalunya, té molt a recórrer en l'àmbit de regulació, no? Tot el tema de privacitat. Penseu que el nostre negoci, per exemple, principal a socialbuy.com és l'aprofitament del big data al voltant de tot el tema de social media, que bàsicament ajuda a vendre més en plataformes de comerç electrònic, no? Tot el tema de privacitat, tot el tema de compres online, de fiscalitat, etc., són temes que estem en un mercat molt canviant, que cada dia surten coses noves i necessitem un sistema, diguéssim, regulador que sigui prou flexible com per adaptar-se a aquestes noves realitats que fa bàsicament 2, 3, 4 anys no existien, no? Doncs, per tant, aquests 3 punts són una mica els que veig ara així més importants de tractar en tot aquest sistema d'innovació, inversió, startups, grans empreses, administracions públiques, aquest ecosistema, i amb una conclusió molt senzilla, no? Com deia abans a Emília, bàsicament els emprenedors, siguin més joves o siguin una mica més madurs com jo, tenim bàsicament una voluntat de transformar alguna cosa, no? I amb això tenim un punt en comú amb l'administració pública, no? Volem transformar la nostra realitat de cada dia, no? I ho volem fer amb una missió molt concreta, en el nostre cas, de les startups, que és transformar la nostra realitat a través de la tecnologia. És el que ens agrada fer, és el que fem cada dia d'una manera flexible, no tenim plans, no tenim... Abans parlaven, abans de la xerrada, que a les escoles de negocis, a mi mateix fa 7 anys, 5 anys, ens ensenyaven a fer business plans, a fer plans comercials, market research, totes aquestes coses que avui en dia en les startups i en les empreses digitals és bàsicament una quimera, no? Parlem de models com el Lean Startup, de pivotació, prototipatge, tot això, no? Jo tinc una diapositiva molt interessant del fundador de WhatsApp a un foro digital d'Estats Units molt famós, que preguntava quan estava fent l'aplicació una mica, demanava feedback sobre el que estava fent, no? I deia bàsicament que estava fent una aplicació que es deia WhatsApp i que servia per una cosa absolutament diferent a lo que és avui WhatsApp, no? És una mostra molt clara de que ningú sap com acabarà el seu negoci, com acabarà la seva aplicació, com acabarà la seva tecnologia. El que sí que saben tant el fundador de WhatsApp com, per exemple, Zuckerberg o qualsevol dels grans emprenedors digitals que existeixen al món, és la gran passió que tenen per connectar la gent, per facilitar amb la tecnologia, diguéssim, la comunicació, etc. No? I per tant, amb això el que demanem bàsicament és flexibilitat, velocitat, capacitat de risc i bàsicament molta voluntat de transformació i d'il·lusió, perquè si no tot aquest procés és absolutament impossible de portar endavant. Així que moltes gràcies i crec que el més interessant és debatre una miqueta entre tots, no?
Moltes gràcies, Sergio. Amb en Sergio Cortés hem acabat la ronda de ponents. Jo, sincerament, em toca moderar moltes taules rodones, amb l'ELF, amb l'Alde Party, per tota Europa, però crec que coincidiran amb mi que avui hem tingut un luxe de ponents. Els 5 ponents jo crec que són ponents extraordinaris, persones de gran intel·ligència i s'ha demostrat amb les seves presentacions, breus tots ells, perquè la veritat agrair que han sigut tots molt breus però molt intensos amb els continguts, amb les experiències pràctiques i teòriques que ens han dit. Per tant, moltes gràcies. Anem bé de temps, anem just on time, tenim uns 15 minuts, 15-20 minuts per qualsevol comentari, ampliació, pregunta, el que considerin. Jo obriria aquí el panel per si hi ha alguna intervenció.
La perspectiva de futur que ens ha plantejat la representant de Grècia crea un abisme molt gran. Jo no sé com en sortirem. Quan estem parlant de països de primera línia, quan estem parlant de països que l'ecosistema digital encara està molt verd, és a dir, potser Catalunya és molt capdavantera, però a la resta d'Espanya jo no crec que estiguin en aquesta línia. Algunes autonomies sí, però no la majoria. El salt que hi pot haver entre la seva generació i la generació de 15 anys no se soluciona amb unes polítiques actives per la innovació en un procés de 5 anys, perquè aquests nois els haurem perdut. Què hem de fer? Què farà Europa?
Perdó, com és una pregunta en general, jo demanaria a qualsevol dels ponents que vulgui respondre el que sigui més valent, que comenci. Algun comentari des dels ponents? Ja, for sure.
Look, I think you raise a good question that is the biggest challenges for policymakers, is what can be done in the next 2-3 years and what needs to be done over a framework of 10-15 years. We are not going to solve the entrepreneurship mind of people in 2 years. It's a long-term project. I think Estonia, it's an impressive country and everybody loved them today. But when they started doing what they have done, they were like nowhere. And they started doing something where nobody was even thinking to that. So the reality, I think, is that you need to have a double strategy. You need to look at what can be done tomorrow. And in my opinion, what can be done tomorrow is simplifying access to capital, simplifying the rules, cutting red tape, things that you can do it in half a second. Okay? Half a second. You take a decision, political decision. Longer term, investment in education, clear, helping companies to find markets. I will give you an example that is my example. Okay? My wife is a painter. My kids go to a very alternative school. My fight in the school is to try to make them understand that computers are not dangerous for the mind of the people. Because for them, it's only 1 hour of computer a week maximum and not more. And it's a big fight for me. But this is probably the best school in Belgium. So there is still a lot of understanding of people, of misunderstanding of people of what technology can bring you, specifically in the education sector. And this is what we have to change. You know, when I love the gorilla example, because it's true, we are a gorilla, okay? And, but my company has been trying to change in the past years from not being a gorilla anymore to try to be, well, we will never be a monkey, we're too big to be a monkey. But to try to attract many more monkeys, okay? And because the monkeys are bringing innovation to us and will help us grow even more. So I think everything is exactly there. You know, policymaker or politicians or whatever, or regulators should be there to favor, but not to create obstacles. And I don't know how much you pay of taxes here. I don't know, I have no clue. I imagine they're quite high. I pay high taxes in Belgium. My sister lives in New Jersey, okay? If you look at the taxation approach, there are countries that are much more open to support entrepreneurs. So if he's a successful entrepreneur at a certain point and doesn't have kids here and etc., he will move there. How many people are moving to Estonia at the moment, Laurie? I know that you're attracting people from everywhere, to what I understand. And I think it is the example. But it's not only taxation, okay? It's also facility to create business, is red tape. Look, I am a gorilla, okay? But my family is monkeys, okay? We had a textile industry for more than 45 years. We lost everything. Because of rules, because it was impossible to export to Europe from Tunisia to a certain point, because I'm Alpha-Arabic, because we couldn't compete against the Chinese, and etc. And, you know, everything left. We are reinventing ourselves. So remember that. First 1 or 2 years, cut the red tape and let those guys develop. Because they are the one that will bring. You know, we are the stability. We will keep the jobs, we will invest in big networks. We need to be there because we need to supply them the network. We need to give them the capacity, but without them, we go nowhere. Because you guys need to use our systems. The big companies need to use our system. And longer term, invest. But you know, it's easy to talk about that. Okay, but it's difficult to apply. But remember, the capital is global, is not local. So if you want to attract the real capital, you need to have incentives. And last part is education. And in the US, education is very expensive, you know, it's a high level and etc. We just launched a system, for example, with Georgia Tech, where people from all over the world can do their Georgia Tech studies, and Georgia Tech studies, and from wherever they are. This is an example. Now, I want to hear more about your e-education system, by the way, and I would love you continuing on this, because I think we need examples that are easily implementable without money, without cost. Because, you know, debt is there, governments cannot spend more money, specifically in our southern countries, and we need low-cost and easily implementable system. I hope Estonia is a low-cost one. And I remember it was a low-cost when I was saying the main point.
Thank you very much. In my opinion, yes, education is one of the most important issues if we talk about development in every kind of field, digital or whatever. And in our politics, our party, I'm glad that right now I'm a chairman of Committee of Culture Affairs, so every day I deal with educational questions in our parliament. So that's why we have developed this system to give opportunity to our students to study this entrepreneurship program, to start it in gymnasium, to know how to be innovative, active, how to establish company, and so on. And that's why our aim is to bring it to 8th and 9th grade, to begin earlier, to give an overview to our youngsters how is it to become an entrepreneur. So about this e-school system, we have developed a network, as I told, that where 80% of our schools are connected and 90% of our students. So you can share your homework, you can share your perhaps, for example, if teacher gives you a mark, like 5, then and then writes a little description about that, why it's 5, why it's not 4. So then parent, she doesn't have to go to school, or he or she doesn't have to take a paper or something, so they can just check from the computer and then communicate with teacher. And also you can find all your learning lessons from internet, from this e-school system, and so on. And now we are developing so-called e-class system and e-books. E-books are quite usual, but e-class is like an environment where teacher can find supportive information about this topic, and then they can show it onto the smart board, and then there are like very interactive programs. They can show videos, they can link it to internet straight, and so on. So the C-class system is also in the phase of development right now. Of course, we still have paper books and stuff like that. This is normal, but we are trying to move on. And then we have started some projects in some schools to provide tablets for students to use, so they can bring all our aim in the future is that they can they don't have to carry big and very heavy bags with books, but they can only have a small tablet where everything is in, and then get all the information from there. So this is very important in my opinion. And also, as already mentioned here, flexible frame or environment for people who live in the country, are they entrepreneurs or whoever. It's important that the frame is flexible and the environment is friendly. That's why I think it's good to come to Estonia and to live there, because we're trying to keep the bureaucracy as less or as low as possible. But still, I have to say that we are facing some problems ourselves also. Some of Estonians go to Finland to find a new job because they have better salaries, but it's another topic. So, and of course, Mr. Lesina mentioned the taxation system and the taxes. We as Liberal Party, we are trying to keep taxes as low as possible, and we managed to declare that income tax for companies is 0% if you reinvest it. So it has worked pretty well in Estonia, and that's why I think it's good to start business in Estonia, because if you reinvest it, what is very reasonable actually, then you don't have to pay any taxes. So that's about it. Yeah, but for the conclusion, I have to say that education, number one, definitely very important, and of course, environment, flexible environment.
Thank you, Mr. Luik. I promise you, I'm sure that Sergio pays here much more than this. I'm sure on this. And we have liberals in government also. But I give the floor to Mr. Harman.
Yes,
Thank you.
This was a very good starting point for my contribution. Since this is an event set up by the European Liberal Forum, I was prepared that the issue of taxes and tax reductions should pop up somewhen. I would like to contribute a bit to that. We had a recent discussion in Germany brought forward by the German Federation of Industry, the BDI, and they were arguing that investment rates would be going down in German industry, and so taxes should be reduced to improve investment conditions. Well, some economists, also at my institute, looked into the data, and what they found was that there might be some reduction in private investment, but there is an even sharper reduction in public investment. So you have to see both sides, and the discussion in Germany, as it is now proposed by the German Institute of Economic Research, is rather that we need to think about public investment in infrastructure, traffic infrastructure, and, as was mentioned, education. So we have to see both sides at this discussion. And also, the next point is, when we're not talking about general tax reductions, or the level of general taxes, there also has been a lot of discussion worldwide about giving incentives for some kind of behavior of companies by the terms of tax regulations. For example, giving tax reductions for R&D investment. That's a very, very broadly discussed topic. But when you look in the OECD data, you find that in countries which employ this policy of honoring R&D investment by tax reductions, there is no higher business investment in R&D than in the other countries. So reality is a bit more complicated. And the last aspect I would like to add is, of course, why are you reducing taxes? Okay, so one reason might be to give better conditions for investment. The other would be to attract investors, of course. But as you also already mentioned, there are several attractiveness factors for investors. One you've already mentioned is education. What's the educational infrastructure in a country I would like to invest in? And I give you a completely different example. In the 90s, I was working for another gorilla, an international machine building company, the world's largest producer of agricultural machinery. And they decided to move a very important production from the United States to Germany. Not because of low wages. They could have moved this production to India, South Africa, Turkey, Spain. They moved it to Germany. Why? Because of industrial relations. In the US, you don't have many strikes. But when and if there are strikes, they cannot calculate what happens, how long they will last, and what will happen to your company. In Germany, we have a very, very finely regulated process how this kind of conflict is handled between the social partners. And that was the core reason for the company to invest in Germany, because there was not this risk of wild strikes. So what I wanted to say is there are different factors determining the attractiveness of a country to investors and determining the propensity of investors to invest.
Thank you. We have Mr. Lesina. The microphone, somebody has the mic.
I just wanted to react on that because it's clear that decreasing tax rate is not going to have an immediate effect. So when we compare OECD data, we also need to look at the longer term because tax rates are not the only reason why companies invest, okay? And there are a lot of others. But attention, let's be careful of saying that decreasing tax rate don't have an effect because we have several studies. If the tax rates are very well focused to boost specific things, they have an incredible effect. So, for example, tax rate on equipment for networks, if you decrease them over a period of 5 years, and you say to the operators, if you invest in the next 5 years, you have these incentives, you will see that they're going to invest because they're going to make the comparison over 20 years. Corporate tax rate, what is the highest, I don't know, probably you don't know that. What is the country with the highest corporate tax rate in the OECD? You will say Sweden or Belgium, right? No, it's the US. Okay, U.S. have the highest corporate tax rate, and we are paying those taxes. Okay, so the aim is not only the total tax, is the incentive on R&D, on investment. But even on R&D, we are not going to invest more in R&D only because there is a lower. We need universities, we need talents, we need long-term view. We need to trust the governments that are putting that because you can decrease it for 2 years and then you increase it again 5 years later. You don't put innovation or R&D center for that reason. And that's a big thing. It's a longer term. As I said, capital is global. People are looking globally where is the best. And the most important thing is talent. Where are the companies going today in Europe? They're going to Slovak Republic, they're going to Romania, and they're not only going there for lower wages. They're going there because there is a high level of IT prepared people. We have 3,000 people in Bratislava. Okay? And you know why we are there? For talents. Because the universities are at an incredible level, and we are able to have great people investing there. Also location. So I just want to be clear there. It's not, you don't decrease tax and you see investment coming. This is not so easy. Okay? There are a lot of factors where company. But it's not only companies coming to invest to you. It's your incubator, your local startups, and etc. also to support. Because you have the money coming from outside, so the FDIs, the foreign direct investment, but you have also what you're able to create on your own country. And this is the big challenge that you will see. There is not a secret magical system because it will be too easy. Everybody will want to implement. And, I don't think you can replicate Estonia in Italy. I would love to replicate Estonia in my own country. I think the day that I will see something digital in Italy, I will be the most happy guy in the world. But, even Belgium is trying to replicate a little Estonia with copying the identity card and etc. But then you go in bottlenecks with often the administrations, the thinking. Last point, this is something that shocked me. Okay, and I read that in the Belgian newspapers. We were thinking in Belgium to move to the e-prescription, like you do in Estonia. I would be the most happy guy. I have 2 kids. We go to the doctor every 3 weeks with my kids. You know that who blocked the e-prescription? The lobbyists of the pharmacies and etc. saying, oh no, there will be many more errors with e-prescription than with normal prescription, because pharmacists know when the doctor writes something, what is good for you. I was looking at that article and say, how can there be an error with an e-prescription? The doctor gives you exactly what you need. Send that to the pharmacy. And everything is automatic. I don't understand the error. There's been a study that has been in the Belgian press for like the week saying, no, e-prescriptions are very bad. And we need to keep the physical prescription, so we need to keep printing, we need to keep annoying people with these things, while it will be an automatic system. I don't get that. So there are places like this that will still resist. It's like the mythical thing that reading a book on this is not good as reading a book, a physical book. I still don't understand why. My wife tells me every time, stop with your iPad, read a real book. I say, but it's a real book. I bought it. They don't get it. So all these things are really dangerous because you cut red tape with this in an incredible way. And we are not producing this, okay? You can use whatever you want, Surface or etc. But it's incredible the frustration that I see when you try to do that, and then you go in places like Estonia, where you see that everything works in the last 15 years. I love, I don't know if you saw their program of their government meetings. Try to watch. They have a great video that they have put online where they show how their government meets and where all the information comes directly. There is no paper. Look at the cost that you spend every year with paper. I see that. And you will be impressed of how much you can save of money just with paper, cartridges, printers, and etc. You'll be surprised. I am trying to impose that to my people. They don't like it, I have to be honest.
Moltes gràcies, senyor Alsina. Tenim unes quantes preguntes, almenys 2 preguntes. Jo voldria fer una i el senyor Saló també. Si els sembla, com el temps ens apreta, fem una ronda tancada de preguntes i després el senyor Luic pot respondre a la intervenció del senyor Alsina i jo també li faré una pregunta i tenim una altra. Per tant, fem una ronda. El senyor Saló, sisplau.
Moltes gràcies. Pere Saló, de la Fundació Llibertat i Democràcia, i breument felicitant els ponents per la seva intervenció i fer més que una pregunta, una reflexió que poso al seu abast. Sobretot se m'ha acudit sentint el representant del Partit Reformista d'Estònia. Bàsicament, jo entenc que el pes del segle XX encara és molt fort i pesa molt. Dius, Estònia en un moment donat ve d'un entorn tòxic, clarament, com era l'antiga Unió Soviètica, i va saber fer la purga de principis, de regulació i fer un salt cap a l'excel·lència on s'han plantat ara en aquests moments. Catalunya ve d'un entorn que també era tòxic en el seu moment, provinent del segle XX, com era el franquisme, però el franquisme no és purgat. El franquisme és reciclat i després és refregit en l'estat social, que si bé no és un entorn tòxic, entenem que l'estat social també forma part del segle XX i en tot cas és un entorn que desincentiva els negocis. Això també el que dona com a resultat és la bombolla de les infraestructures que endeuta l'estat espanyol i que nosaltres som una fundació liberal, el que demostra és que on no hi ha hagut una purga doncs no apareix la mà invisible del mercat que està guiant d'una manera benèfica, com ens han explicat molt bé els ponents, diguem-ne, l'impuls de la societat cap al creixement, cap a la innovació, cap al comerç. Això és una de les qüestions que no és una casualitat que el Regne d'Espanya encapçali el rànquing en la transposició de directives de la Unió Europea amb trampa. Això no és una casualitat, perquè el mercat és una cosa que no està massa ben vista. Nosaltres, després d'escoltar-los amb vostès i veient que l'Estat ha de garantir la seguretat pública, l'Estat, això suposo que vostès hi coincidirien, quin seria el pacte de mínims, que seria d'alguna manera la meva intervenció. L'educació, la seguretat pública i poder garantir aquesta mà invisible, els efectes de la mà invisible. El que es demostra és que on no hi ha mà invisible hi ha el dit del govern, i el dit del govern al final sempre acaba escollint en els seus amics i no l'opció més positiva per la societat. Gràcies.
Moltes gràcies. Teníem una altra intervenció. Sí. Aquí. Sí.
I have a question for Dr. Hartmann. This is about my background. I have worked with Fraunhofer before, and also I work with the algorithms for Internet of Things sensing, teaching that in Spain. My question is about Industry 4.0 initiative. Inside Germany, it is well known within certain sectors, yes, like the Fraunhofer and etc. But outside, what is the effort to take it out? I think it will be beneficial for Europe in general, because you know that there is other initiatives also coming globally as well. So I think in the end it will be a standards race. So in the end I think that there will be, it's a little bit like GSM, yes? So if Europe is able to come to that position quite quickly in the Internet of Things, so that is my question to you. I mean, do you see this being pushed outside of Germany?
Germany has a substantial proportion of traditional industry in the economy as opposed to the UK, for example. So it's important for Germany to promote industrial development in the more narrow sense of the word. There will be spillover effects if they will take the road of standardization in the more narrow sense of the word. It's one possibility. But this is still in the making, I would say. We as an institute, we are doing the accompanying research for that part of the Industry 4.0 initiative, which is funded by the German Ministry of Economic Affairs. And one major point of concern is standardization in this context. But it's still in the making. So it will be, as often, a mixture of real standards and de facto standards. And when we're talking about de facto standards, there will be some effects if and when major players in industry will engage in this exercise. And they will, and are already doing it. I hope this was an answer to your question.
Molt bé. Jo, si els sembla, perquè és el temps, tinc una darrera pregunta que li faríem al senyor Luic, i podria també respondre a la que havia quedat del senyor Lesina. Jo tenia una pregunta molt directament cap a vostè, que és: nosaltres, Europa i la Unió Europea segueix sent el referent mundial amb llibertats, amb drets humans, amb democràcia, tot i les mancances, que en tenim moltes des del punt de vista del radicalisme democràtic. De fet, amb aquestes eleccions europees, un dels grans temes és com fem una Europa i una Unió Europea més democràtica, com escollim, per exemple, el president de la Comissió de manera més directa, per dir-ho així, o com escollim el president de la Unió Europea directament pels ciutadans o no, aquests debats. La meva consulta és: Estònia ha fet una avançada molt gran cap a l'e-government, és a dir, la utilització de les noves tecnologies per millorar els serveis públics, per dir-ho així. I això és una evidència molt gran que tota la resta de països intentem fer en major o menor mesura. Però dit això, amb el moment actual que hi ha uns moviments molt forts de constatació cap a la política tradicional, cap a una aproximació cap a noves formes de fer política, cap a una representació més directa dels ciutadans, de no només votar cada 5 anys o cada 4 anys, sinó de participar directament d'una democràcia al segle XXI. La meva qüestió seria, hem fet un pas només cap a l'e-government o anem clarament, i en el cas d'Estònia, cap a un open government, és a dir, que els ciutadans tinguin veritablement l'opció, via les noves tecnologies, de poder participar directament de les decisions que prenen els governs. Perquè la meva sensació és que els governs que tenen una por tremenda a obrir-se a la participació directa dels ciutadans, en aquests moments el salt tecnològic cap a la millora dels processos burocràtics és evident, jo crec, amb la majoria de països, i amb Estònia clarament, però no estic tan convençut que fem un pas valent i determinat cap a un govern obert, que vol dir un govern dels ciutadans.
Thank you very much for the question. Me as a politician, I have to say that openness is very important in politics, of course, and we are trying in Estonia, and I hope that all politicians try to be as open as possible. We are, of course, these digital improvements help us to share information more easily, to give online sessions to internet, from our commission meetings, from our general meetings in parliament, of course in government. It definitely helps, and I think we have to use those advantages to give this information to people and more do cooperation with them. So we are trying to do that, yes, and we just had a couple of days ago discussion whether to invite people to every committee sessions, so people who are interested in such kind of topic, for example, I don't know, education or culture or sports, they can come and then register and then just listen there, or if they have something to say, they can say. We had this discussion. It also, of course, it has some dangers, but we are discussing this to get people more involved into politics. Yeah, this is very important. I think digital economy helps to improve that. But I wanted to give a little comment to Mr. Lassina about the e-prescription topic, because my mother is a pharmacist, and then my grandmother, she also was pharmacist, and I have seen all those paper prescriptions through years, and even my mother, she was very skeptical. In the beginning, yeah, she told her that this is so difficult, I don't know how to do that, and then all those problems and the errors that may happen. It was 3 years ago or something like that, or 4. And now, a couple of weeks ago, I asked her, how do you feel now? She says that I can't even imagine those paper prescriptions anymore, because they were so bureaucratic and not very comfortable. So people are getting used to it, and then it's. It was even bigger problem in if we're preparing the e-elections, because people were saying that those votes are not legitimate and whatever, those are like fake and so on. So we had to prove that those systems are very safe, and your privacy is guaranteed and so on. So we have gone this step through, and I think that was the biggest thing to get e-elections. The e-prescription is easy thing compared to that. So, but yeah, people are conservative, and you have to explain, and then they will understand in a period of time. Thank you.
Moltes gràcies. Ho deixaríem aquí perquè ja són just, com havíem acordat, a les 11. Jo només un punt d'informació, com hem parlat tant, el senyor Cortés ho ha introduït, el concepte dels monkeys i dels goril·les, només dic que a Barcelona, que és una ciutat que passen moltes coses avui en dia, ja justament avui em sembla que és una conferència de l'especialista mundial en primats i en goril·les, ho dic per si volen assistir aquesta tarda, perquè és un tema important, no? La veritat. En tot cas, si volen, ens ho demanen i ja farem algunes gestions. Dit això, passaríem a la part més difícil, i com és la més difícil no la puc fer jo, sinó que la farà la presidenta de l'ELF, que és fer la cloenda i fer una mica de resum de totes les qüestions que hem tractat. Moltes gràcies, felicita.
Well, thank you, Mark. First of all, for really excellent moderation of this discussion.
Sorry.
Oh. So I have to repeat now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark, for excellent moderation of this event. And I think really inspiring discussion. I think you would all agree with me that we had excellent speakers here. I would like to thank Mr. Hartman also to enlighten us on what, in fact, digital economy is and how does it evolve into ecosystems. But perhaps the most crucial question for me was asked by the lady in the audience. What about the future? What about the future? Now, sometimes, or someone has said that the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I think Mr. Lessina said very well that a device which was invented not so long ago, some 7 years or so, has really changed our perception of space and time. But perhaps not only the perception, but really how the virtual and the real worlds interact into the, as you, I think, rightly pointed out, the ecosystem, the oikos of our home, of our economy also, where the word comes from, and that this, in fact, evolves into networks, that perhaps in future networks will matter more than place. But what I think also was very important to see specifically from the viewpoint of the European Liberal Forum, as I said, its political foundation on the EU level, and we mainly deal with all public policy issues that are important for all of us in Europe, but also perhaps beyond. So I would really encourage our member organizations, as CADEM and so, perhaps to come up also in future with a project, also perhaps in connection with our other partners, how we could in fact formulate for the next mandate. As you know now, European institutions will change. Probably we'll also get a new leadership, and I hope personally that it will be a leadership with vision and also with the competence to implement this vision. Let's hope so. But for us, we have now formulated at ELF, or ELF, as we sometimes call it, 4 foci which are very important. One is to find liberal solutions for economy. The other is the rule of law. And one very large umbrella project is Future of Europe. When I think that digital economy and what will happen in future, in fact, very well fits into all this. Yeah? So as we started where, for example, what is important for the state, or let's say for the European Union as a regulator in some way, I think was very well pointed out also the framework to support investment, but at the same time allowing this framework that each country can really identify and specify its needs, as I see it. So how to attract then the invention? Is it, let's say, the tax system, as it was here, the example of Estonia? Are there industrial relation or some other factors in the environment? And in long term, but also important very now, the education. And what about this mental framework that we have to develop? If we have technology there, if we have ideas, as it was also, I think, from our young Greek friend who was talking, I think, with great enthusiasm, but also pointing out a certain digital divide that still exists, not only geographically, but also generationally. And I think you said maybe we are entering danger zone. Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. Now, this for me, as from the policy perspective, is a very important field of standardization. Recently, we had within the European Liberal Forum also a large discussion or another round table on the transatlantic, how is it called, trade and investment partnership, TTIP. Huh? And one of the dilemmas or questions, it's really standardization, which of course tackles also the field not only of investment but also of digital economy. And I wonder if it is not specifically this agreement, which is now in the making, drafting the standards for the next century, rather than perhaps the negotiation between the World Trade Organization and so on. So here I think we have to be very careful also as liberals, because it also tackles protection of privacy. Of course, it is nice to have, e-government, e-elections, e-prescriptions, and so on. But still, I think also, as you said, Mark, human rights, the rights to privacy are very important, I think, to all people, but we as liberals have to defend them. Recently, I have heard on one of the lectures that the European Court of Justice now has a case which is pending on the so-called right to be forgotten on the internet. Huh? Yeah. It is really, I mean, in this sense, also a dangerous zone that we have to be aware of, but also act upon this. If I may conclude, perhaps then in one sentence, I would really like that we within the European Liberal Forum could continue, perhaps on a more directed, larger project on policy making in this area, that we could then, of course, present so to the decision makers at the European level, as also to, of course, the wider public. And perhaps this is specifically important not only because it affects our economic life, but it surely also changes society and perhaps our culture. And as today is the Day of Europe, I think we should perhaps continue with celebrating these days on the streets of Barcelona. And I wish you all the best today, because I also know that you have rallies or
plenty of them.
In the framework of the EP elections. So thank you once again for participating in this debate, and I wish you a good afternoon.
Just before finishing, on behalf of the CATDEM Foundation, we would like to all the speakers to give a gift, and to the president of the ELF.
Oh.
It's a typical Catalan catanias, a Catalan, how do you call it in English? Delicatessen, chocolate.
Oh.
It's chocolate, something, but that's
How
for
nice.
you. Thank
you so much.
You have also, I will give you that.